lucky because there's no sound. But this camera's
Good
going, this
afternoon.
camera's
Welcome
going.
to the Senate Committee on Government Operations, a meeting for April 1st, 2026. We're going to take up H917, an act relating to military affairs. I don't see the sponsor of the bill with us, so we'll turn things over to our legislative counsel, Sophie Zadotny, to walk us through the bill.
Good afternoon, Sophie Zadotny for the Office of Legislative Counsel. So this is a 23-page bill, but again, as we touched on before we went live, the first 39 sections we can get through pretty swiftly. So essentially what the first 39 sections do, which is pages 1 through 20, is it deletes and inspector from the title of the Adjutant General. So right now in our state statute, it refers to the Adjutant and Inspector General. In fact, there is an Inspector General with the National Guard. Historically, the Adjutant General had those responsibilities as well, but given the size of the job, they got separated at some point. And so this is really just a cleanup of that to be more accurate when referring to the Adjutant General. I would just quickly draw your attention to section 5 at the bottom of page 3. And that simply provides that a cross-reference to Title II. This is to do with the election of the Adjutant General. So currently the fact that the Adjutant General is elected every 2 years and all the information around the National Guard is in Title 20. But if somebody wants to run for election, that's under Title II, which deals with the legislature. So it's just putting in a cross-reference. So if somebody's interested in running, they can actually find where the information about running is located.
Okay.
So unless anyone has questions, go.
Yes, Senator Clarkson.
So this is a bill not related to military affairs. Is it, what's the problem that was being addressed with this bill?
Well, we can ask the sponsor of the bill, probably.
Or the reporter?
Yeah.
But it comes. We don't normally.
Okay, that's true. I was just curious. You were there first.
Right.
Great. I will ask Mary Catherine when she takes the seat.
All right. So if I look at page 20 of the bill, section 42, right at the bottom of page 20. What this does is it adds into Title III. This is to do with state employees. And right now there is certain preferences for when you're hiring into state government. And this provides a preference for military spouses. So it provides that before you do that, you still have to comply with the current language that's in Title III. So, for example, once the requirements of a collective bargaining agreement have been satisfied and a diligent effort has been made to recruit an employee within the classified service to fill a vacancy, which is the reference where it says subsection 327A on line 7 on page 21, that's what that's referring to.
Mm-hmm.
Then the state shall make a diligent effort to recruit, interview, and hire. And then there's a list of preferences. And this adds at subdivision large capital C, line 18, adds the spouses of personnel currently serving in the U.S. Armed Forces. And then it has a second provision, which starts at subsection 2 on line 20, which again adds spouses of personnel currently serving in the U.S. Armed Forces, that if they apply for and meet the requirements for any competitive recruitment that's conducted using a point-based examination and they receive a passing score, they would then get 5 points added to their competitive examination rating. And the testimony has been from the Department of Human Resources that the only place where state government is currently using competitive examinations is for law enforcement.
Oh.
So that it's probably not going to have a huge impact, but that's what that provides. And then the final piece is on page 22, line 13, section 43. This is to do with parking for disabled veterans, and this is under the municipal provisions in Title 24. And this provides, again, language on page 23, lines 5 through 7. A vehicle with disabled veteran plates issued by any state shall be permitted to park at a parking meter without fee.
Senator White.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the definition of a parking meter, is that a parking meter that a town operates or is that a private lot?
So this is under the municipal code. And I will say this was not my bill originally. This came from, as you would know, probably from the transport side. This was Damien's bill that got added into here. So I'm not going to be an expert on parking meters. It says to regulate parking lots and parking meters on public property.
Okay.
So I'm assuming these are public ones and not private.
But if you, for example, are a municipality that has like a third party service like town, who do like 24/7 parking lot surveillance, they're a third party and they collect a separate fee on top of enforcement of parking fees for the town. So with if a disabled veteran got a ticket, would they still have to pay the fee to town, who's like the third party vendor that has a fee on top of the fee from the municipality?
I don't know the answer to that. You might contact Damien and think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fantastic idea. And especially since, and I would extend it to all disabled folks, in general, but I appreciate this start. Yeah.
Senator Bielanski?
That was actually going to be my question. Do we allow anyone with a placard to park in a space for disability to park at any meter without a?
So my understanding is it's two different provisions. So there is disabled parking where you can park and I can pull out I've got all the different bills and I've got all the language in here, but there are separate provisions relating to disability parking where you can park for an extended period of time. I mean, it's not even 2 hours, it's a number of days. You can park for a long period of time. So this is a separate provision. These are two separate parts of the statute relating to disability parking.
Okay, right. I guess my question is just, are they permitted to park at the parking meter without fee? If they have just sort of the general disability plaque?
No, my understanding is no, that's covered by a separate statute.
She's chomping at the bit behind us.
Right. I would also support extending that to anyone who has that placard.
Senator Clarkson, did you have a question?
It's sort of been answered. Park mobile. I mean,
that's
the question.
exactly.
With any of these, we have Park Mobile and Woodstock.
Exactly.
I think that interplay of the parking apps and
Because you paid the town and you also paid them. So that would be really frustrating to me, because if you were covered under this and then you still get charged a $3.50 fee, or because you're over that seems like.
but maybe we could figure out a code that a disabled person or a disabled veteran would have that they could put into the parking app. So it strikes me this is not insolvable.
Oh, yeah.
I also feel like in instances where the only option is to pay through the app, they should not be allowed to charge fees. Like if the town is saying, no, this is the only way you can pay it, then you shouldn't incur a fee because there's no ability for you to pay it without incurring that fee.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm just looking. So current law provides that individuals with a disability plate or placard, except as otherwise provided in this subsection, an eligible person shall be permitted to park and to park without fee for at least 10 continuous days in a parking space or area that is restricted as to the length of time parking is permitted or where parking fees are assessed, notwithstanding the 10-day period. In the case of a state or municipally operated parking garage, an eligible person shall be permitted to park and to park without fee for at least 24 continuous hours. And then there's a carve out. This doesn't apply to spaces where it's, illegal to, it's prohibited, where they have the no parking.
I can't park in front of the fire hydrant.
Right.
So wouldn't any disabled veteran also have the placard? Wouldn't they also already cover this?
to that.
Not necessarily.
Very Kathy.
You want to
Does anyone else have questions about the language in the bill for Sophie? Okay, thank you. I know you have to change locations.
Yeah. Pay your parking fee.
So we're welcoming Mary Catherine Stone, who sponsored the bill. And you've heard at least a couple of
Yeah.
we're not concerned, but questions.
My name is Representative Mary Catherine Stone of Burlington, Vermont, for the record. The reason that this bill exists is because, for a long time in Vermont history. We've had a long tradition of services and communities all over our state. It's no surprise to y'all that neighbors step forward to wear the uniform of our country and our Vermont National Guard. But services never carried alone. It's often shared by spouses who move and have to rebuild careers. I say that as a military spouse myself, by families who have to endure long deployments, and by veterans who return home carrying the lasting impacts of that commitment. So this bill is just making sure that Vermont actually meets that service with respect and support. And it is a omnibus bill, meaning that it came from many bills that were related to create this kind of hodgepodge of things. But the goal is to support military and their families. So it brings our statutes up to date and strengthens the way our state recognizes and assists people who have served and those who stand beside them, for military spouses seeking employment, disabled veterans navigating everyday life. So it's a practical and meaningful step forward to ensure that we continue to honor people who serve. I won't belabor walking through the bill because you just heard that, but I will just touch on the parts. So number one was just because we were talking a lot about the adjutant general election. We just had it and the title is wrong. It kept saying adjutant and inspector general, and I was like, we are not electing the inspector general. That is literally a separate human being who is not the adjutant general. They provide, like, they do inspections and in general, and it includes like overseeing the adjutant general if the adjutant general had something that they needed to be inspected on. So it kind of like a conflict of interest, right? So I was like, this is so wrong for so many reasons. And it's just because it's an antiquated term. I asked the question, it's like, oh, back in 1865 or whatever, they used to be the same person, but they're not now. And I'm like, okay, well,
Let's separate it out.
let's actually put what we're voting on, like, on paper so it's accurate. So that's what the first part of the bill is.
First 20 pages.
Yeah, was
I know it's a lengthy, but I guess we need to include it all.
right, because it's not transparent. And it wasn't accurate. So anyway, that's the first part of the bill. The next part of the bill is creating preference for hiring military spouses into employment in state government. People are like, does it apply to a privately owned? No, it's just state government. And it's two birds and one stone. I know in our committee, we've heard a lot. There are a ton of vacancies in state government right now. And then I know that there are a lot of military spouses who have to move here at the drop of the hat. And it's oftentimes hard for them to find jobs just because their resumes look kind of odd a lot of times. It's like, I've moved 4 times in the last year, and therefore I had like 2 months of employment here and 3 months. And it's just to like highlight. But a lot of times that's because they're having to move in service to their spouse and in service to the country. So it's, recognizing that.
Senator Clarkson.
But, and I assume this would come into play in the interviews. That's also a challenge for hiring somebody if you think they're not going to be around for a while. I mean, it's a plus and
It's a plus and a minus, but
and at some point we should also review the licensure because we've gone through this. I wouldn't say giving preference so much as enabling and honoring licensure in other states for precisely the same group of
the
people.
compact bills are an example of why we were doing that work.
We need to do more of that work to make our licenses of military spouses transferable in our state so that we can be, has often been a barrier for employing military spouses. So we've begun work on that. We've done a lot of work on that in our OPR bills, but we can continue that work too.
And this doesn't guarantee that anyone's going to get a job. It's not like, oh, just because I'm a military spouse, I'm going to get this job for sure. It's just to recognize their service and kind of flag it that they're military spouse.
Add some points.
Add some points if it is like a point-based system, which you heard only utilized if they're wanting to be a state trooper. So anyway.
Well, they might well be actually really well
They will call them.
to do that.
Yeah, they want to. And then the last one is to provide free parking for disabled veterans. And the reason I was chomping at the bit is that there are 2 different ways you can call it, like disability is defined. So the, I wish I had a prop here, but like the little icon of like the person in a wheelchair that you put on your thing or that's on license plates, that is a different definition as compared to what veterans get when they go to the VA to get disabled status. So to get the little like icon, you have to be pretty much
Permanently, right? Yeah.
yes, like you have to have a ambulatory mobility impairment and or have to have a very significant visual impairment. To be a disabled veteran and to have a disability status from the VA, it's not the same like qualifier. So folks with disabled veteran plates, a lot of times like in other states, if they have the disabled veteran plate, they automatically get free parking. So that's another reason. It's like our number one source of income in the state is tourism. So these folks that come here from other states too, like they would also qualify if they had a disabled veteran plate. If they parked at a parking meter municipality, we'd be like, yeah, you don't have to pay here because Vermont actually appreciates your service and whatnot. So the little icon that y'all are used to seeing is different than a disabled veteran plate. Because it's
So one's a plate and one's a little thing you hang from your,
just two different definitions. So you can be a disabled veteran and it's not the same qualifier is what we civilians use to say you are
disabled.
You have a disability.
correct.
Yeah, Senator White.
So in that instance, to qualify for the status of getting a placard for your vehicle, essentially the folks who would have a license plate but not a placard, it's like they're in the gray zone between kind of qualifying for that.
Correct.
So they, yeah, so I think that's interesting as a concept. Enforcement wise, did you discuss that? Like how towns, like the fee piece I was
That
asking,
was
like how,
in Ways and Means.
okay.
So they did discuss it and I know that League of Cities and Towns, I believe, came in and talked and
Oh,
they said, so you should pull up like that
Okay.
has to be on the Ways and Means page.
right. Yeah, perhaps we ask the league to come in and just talk, because my only concern is if there's, like, if the town is on the hook for some kind of random,
I think they
Year
covered,
charge.
I think they covered that. That was one of the things I know I talked to them off record about where it went to Ways and Means and yeah. Great.
And I'm still trying to understand, maybe it's a unique phenomenon in Woodstock, I don't know. Where you have two charges, how do you pay for each of them?
well, it depends on how your town has set up a contract with the vendor.
Two charges.
You are charged both a fee. They don't break it out on your little ticket, when you pay your
Right.
parking, but you are also being assessed a small administrative fee.
So this is for, let's clarify, this is for any town that uses a mobile parking app.
That's my
Third party.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Brand name, whatever. That's my understanding. So my only concern is, let's say there was a ticket or there was a fee that was assessed,
Right.
and then that veteran said, I'm not supposed to get this fee. Well, is the town now having to pay the fee difference, or if the ticket, do they have to compensate for the ticket? Like who's on the hook?
Or could you just void it altogether?
Yeah, like,
No
well,
one would
these
be
third
there.
party services say we do this in other states and this is,
you just gotta let them go.
yeah.
Yeah, this might be an education piece. I mean, obviously it will be to the municipalities of like, hey, if you see this, it not, in addition to the logo that we're familiar with, says disabled veteran, that too should be green, period.
So I'm trying to think of another question that I have. I go to Burlington on occasion, not a lot, but on occasion. And I park underneath a hotel that has a gate that goes up and down. It's not manned. It's just there. And you pull it in and the gate goes up, you drive in and you park. Then when you leave, sometimes there's somebody on duty or whatever the right term is to collect the fee for parking. And sometimes there isn't. And you can only use a credit card. Like at the Burlington Airport, there's nobody there, but that gate won't open unless you pay. So how would this bill address that
It says-
situation?
Well, it says public property, so I think that's what I don't know if the one at the airport would technically be public
The
property.
city owns, South owns the parking lot, I think. They own the airport. They do own the airport, I know that.
I am no computer genius, but I'm going to guess that in those instances, there would be behind the scenes coding that could be done so that that ticket could be validated in.
Right, because people who have the placard, like the disability placard now have
Right.
to figure that out somehow, right? Like we're
Yeah.
not, like they figured that out. Those
Okay,
Cause I know,
This would be.
like, I've gone to the Burlington airport to visit the weather people and they validated, they were able to just validate inside. And so then when I got to the thing, I scanned my ticket and it let me out without paying. So there is a mechanism by which to
Okay.
do that.
All right.
Yeah, would you have to submit for reimbursement if you were in a situation where you're in a public garage? You have to pay to leave, the gate's not going up.
But I think internally in that system, like,
There's some
there's
way.
gotta be a way.
Because people.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, totally.
Yeah.
But how would you in the moment, you just have to pay it, like, right?
Or just run down the cake shop.
You didn't take any,
That
you didn't take any testimony about how that particular situation would be. addressed.
came through and I'm guessing it came through in Ways and Means.
Oh.
That's the whole reason that the bill had to be referred to that
Okay.
committee. It was to deal with like the fees that could be
Okay.
incurred through this. Yeah.
Will this likely go to finance then over here?
I don't know. I don't know how y'all work over here.
Yeah, it's a bloomer question.
Yeah.
Only if there's a fee that remains in it, if there's any.
If we haven't addressed, but we've already addressed it. That's, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, we definitely should have the LCT come in and maybe they can answer the question.
And I think they may have already come in, so I would just say, I would go to House Ways and Means and look up 917 and it may, I can do it right now, but it might be in there.
Is that the only witness that you think?
I don't know for sure.
I think we should actually have Park Mobile in. They're represented in the building.
All
It
right,
would be great to get a third party
okay.
parking, because many of our towns are moving to, do you guys have Park Mobile, do you have parking meters?
I just find it almost free, not an insult, but a real inconvenience if a disabled veteran had to go through some sort of validation or even
Well,
pay it and then later get it.
That's why if they had, if there was a, with their, they got a code that would give, that would, they could use.
Well, let's find
all
out
over the country.
people, what do you call them, Park Mobile?
And their
That's one of
parking
the
apps, their
yeah.
parking application.
Oh,
And the one Woodstock uses is Park Mobile.
here too.
And here in Montpelier, we use Park Mobile.
Representative Stone, do you know if someone who has the disabled veteran license plate on their car also has some indication on their driver's license that they are a disabled veteran?
I don't know, it also depends state by state, because even the disabled veteran plates, they
Or different.
different each state, like some states like give a 20% disability rating for the VA, and others are like 50%, whatever, like.
Yeah, because what I'm
They're
wondering,
the same type.
again, like the coding of the machines, if it's on their driver's license, can they just scan their driver's license? Like, ooh.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming down.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Representative Stone? Okay.
It-
Lots, but I'm not gonna ask you now.
Oh, okay.
Perhaps are not relevant to this bill.
They're, this is one of our great producers of Farmside also. So we have lots of here. We can do that.
I know, I was like, what? This is great. What?
Okay.
I was definitely wondering where that was going as well.
Yeah. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you,
Hopefully it's straightforward
hopefully.
as any legislative.
Yes, and then it's legislation.
Chris Root, did you wanna?
Sure, just
Wait.
real quick, Chris from Joint Fiscal, this bill did go to Ways and Means because of that final section related to, the parking meters. Ways and Means only took testimony from staff on this bill. They did not have outside witnesses. They had the bill for a brief period of time. Just for the benefit of the committee, JFO typically gets involved with bills when they are moving out of a policy committee and into a money committee. So when it popped up on my radar and it's like, so why is Ways and Means getting this bill? We did not write a fiscal note on it because we don't do estimates for municipalities. But there's no situation where this would be a meaningful revenue loss to any one municipality. For a sense of context, there's fewer than 300 Vermont issued disabled veteran plates out there. This would apply to disabled veteran plates issued by other states, but we're talking about a very, very small percentage of the vehicle fleet. And, not very many Vermont municipalities have parking meters to begin with. They tend to be areas that have downtown business districts where turnover of street spots is something we want to look into this time. That's when there's no.
So another de minimis bill.
De minimis to municipalities. Yep.
Senator White,
Are there any state spots that we have parking meters at?
maybe, but probably not very many.
Okay.
But
And I
this-
can't imagine this would be a situation where people would be parking at the state spot for any real length of time. Um,
I can't think of one.
Yeah, I was trying to-
I can't think of
I
a
can't think of
single
it.
state building.
I can't think of it.
Okay, great.
There are parking meters right outside of the DMV.
True.
Yes, but I think those
City
are
of
Montpelier.
Montpelier.
They are Montpelier, but I'm just saying, by a state building, there are parking.
But they're not state parking meters.
Correct.
There are also visitor spots in the lot behind you.
That is true.
I did not know that.
There's not many.
Okay.
Evidence.
Maybe I bring this up to Damien and I had a side conversation. but
Feel like
Otherwise,
Let's get
we
parking.
want people to access state government services, and charging for parking sort of flies in the face of that. Like, it to me, like when I think about like having state parking meters to access state services.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, I'm so
no,
pro
there
this,
should be
but
free parking. to
I don't know,
access
I'm so
state
pro
services.
this. I just don't want there to be a situation where someone who has that plate is told that they have to pay and then they have to go through this whole rigmarole where it's like that, because that's what's gonna.
I would also offer for the committee that most municipalities that have parking meters have an appeals process.
Oh, great. Good point.
I mean, like, I mean, what do I know? I'm from Philly, where you get like 5 parking tickets a year. It's just the cost of living there. And there's an appeals process.
Okay.
And in Woodstock, you could take it into the store that you would happen to park in front of or close by and get a stamp, get out of jail free card.
Yes.
Stamp.
So the appeals process moving forward, is it civil offense?
I mean, where I come from, it was purely administrative.
Right.
It didn't even touch the court system.
Okay.
Nonetheless.
I don't know how they do it in
I
Vermont.
think it would be
Yeah,
good to get parking.
Having appealed the
Yes, so
parking
it's-
ticket for Winooski, it is the same. It
Yeah.
is completely administrative.
Let's find out
process.
if represents.
Since it goes to the judicial.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, here it does.
So,
How do we get out and alert to lobbyists about who represents Park Mobile or any other?
thought that one of them will go every.
I'm happy to
I
ask.
don't know.
I'm happy
Dylan,
to,
I'm sure they'll be very supportive of my prohibition of charging a fee.
I know. I'm happy to do a little transportation investigation.
Yeah, because actually parking, well, we do have a $33 million transportation gap.
And we'll make it up on those.
We'll make it up on parking.
That's no.
The chief fund only gets moving violations, not parking violations.
For now.
Anything else for Chris? Okay,
Yes, he's the man for transportation questions.
thank you, Chris, Sophie, as always, thank you. We have one other item for consideration today. Unfortunately,
I have good news. I
Oh.
heard from the city attorney language.
oh, really? David was
I
in,
know. We, since he was in here to now,
Oh,
we made it
okay.
happen.
And what happened?
yeah, so can you walk us through the language?
Yeah, I'm fine. Like,
Thank you, Chris.
do we have it up on our page or in front of us?
Yes.
I have to leave right at 3:35.
Okay,
335.
this
What number is it?
won't be that.
By the way,
By
the
the way,
Oh,
This
right
is
here.
this is the Burlington Charter that we've been waiting on and waiting on and waiting on. I don't have it. That's fine. I can walk through it. Well, let's find it out.
It's here.
Yeah, I don't have to wait at all.
Ah,
Yes.
is it as fast as I have?
No,
Well,
it is
that's the bill. We're
round
gonna
one
amend it.
point three.
You have it in your pile, but for a whole bunch of other things.
Okay.
So as you may recall, this charter came to us, attempting to remove the
Yes.
requirement for Burlington to go through a whole charter change process,
Yeah.
to change the bounds of their wards and districts.
Yeah.
And they had wanted to give themselves an allowance to change them outside of the 10-year census cycle, but with some sort of restriction on just being able to do it whenever they felt ready. The language they sent us didn't really achieve that. And so the language that you have in front of you is language that achieves what they have asked for. So the city council may change election area boundaries following the taking of the decennial census. And the reason we chose may instead of shall is they don't want to have to change them if they don't need to be changed. And whenever necessary to correct an unconstitutional division of population among the city districts or wards. So that's that language that gives them the ability to change it outside of the census if it is unconstitutionally proportioned. And they will still be approved and voted on and all of that, but they no longer have to go through the whole process of a charter change. this language has gone through, as you will see, 3 versions. And this final version has been approved by a member of the city council and the city attorney. And achieves what they were trying to achieve.
So this 225 language is to be recycled.
Yes, you should have draft 1.3
I'm
of 508.
Any questions?
I'm just happy it does what they want it to do.
Yes.
This was that whole 5-year thing, right? Colin?
Yeah, this was, yes, because they wanted to be able to do it in order to correct things, but they put that cap on
Right.
5 years, and it was like, well, what if it goes unconstitutional in 1 year? So this actually does put the sort of restriction of like, these are the only instances you can change the boundaries, but it doesn't have to be bound to the census, and they don't have to do a charter change to do it. Because if you recall, we heard testimony that when the city of Burlington did that charter change, they thought they would never have to change the
Right.
districts and wards. And now we're looking at a charter change allowing them to do it more frequently because of how quickly the population is shifting in the city of Burlington.
Right.
Any questions, comments, concerns? I just soon vote it out.
We could vote it out right now.
Well,
Why don't we just do it?
that's kind of where I was headed.
I'm right with you. I'm fully supporting it.
I can feel that support. Feel good.
H508.
I'm
Draft 1.3.
That's the amendment, so you're gonna have to make sure that it references approval with instance of amendment, or however that it's
Favorable with amendment?
with amendment, yes. And as soon as you've copied that down, we'll ask you to.
Yeah. Senator Clarkson.
Yes.
She's reading it for the first time.
I added.
I bring it up.
One thing I had.
Fully in support.
Explained by the senator from Chittenden.
Senator Morley, yes. Senator Buolsky,
Yes.
Senator White,
Yes.
Senator Collins.
Yes. And I know that Senator Bihovsky's dying to. report.
I am happy to report this. It is a municipality I represent, and I did a fair amount of work to get
You
it.
did a great job with this, thank you. Melissa's already poked her head in and I said, no, we don't have anything, so it's up to you. If you want to take it upstairs to get it on the calendar, if you don't, we can wait till tomorrow.
I think I'll take it up tomorrow because I have a bill tomorrow and
Okay.
my other thing.
Okay, well, by golly, we come to the end of our day, believe it or not.
Wow.
Tomorrow we have,
You have something in this.
if you'd like to,
I
I can stay for as long as you need to.
Senator, look,
You
I
have 2 minutes.
didn't even, I told you I wouldn't be fast enough to get you out of here by 3:35.
You did it.
But I was.
You are.
Are you reporting another bill elsewhere?
No.
She has something else to say.
Yeah.
Are we live?
Yes, we are.
Real quick.
Tomorrow, we're gonna take another look at OPR and, we're gonna have another witness on 519, which is the Randolph Police moving over to, well, we'd already scheduled him. He's the United Federation of Police Officers. My guess is he'll be in favor of this.
I would hope.
I have no idea. And we're also gonna have folks in from VAN, the Vermont Access Network, with a request for funding. So if there's nothing else to come before the committee,
I would just note, as we think about that the chap who was here, filming behind you,
Mhm.
was in fact, Patrick Cody, who runs the Ludlow, public access network and is doing a piece on the 3 Windsor District Senators. So there was an example of van in action, of the Vermont Access Network in action.
yeah, we're gonna hear from Davidian, I believe that's how you pronounce her last name.
Yes, Laura.
And Bolt from Rutland, Peg TV, so,
Right.
okay, is there anything else? Then we'll adjourn for the day and see all of you tomorrow.